Okay, Shabbat Shalom and welcome to the World Alliance of Qara'im Torah study. And let me just get rid of this banner. So, as you can see in the title, this week's study is dedicated to my dear friend Boaz Silberberg, who just recently died, leaving behind his wife Zilpah and 4 children. And Boaz was a very, very special person who was living in Jerusalem. I was a regular over at his house and Zilpah's house, and he had a lot of influence on me. Boaz was always there to help me and to help others, for me and for others. And he was very dedicated to what he believed in. He was very dedicated to Torah. He was very dedicated to the land of Israel and to having Jews live on the entire land of Israel with no restrictions. He even got into some trouble, we'll just leave it at that, for his beliefs, but that only shows how dedicated he was. And most of all, he was dedicated to his family. He absolutely adored his wife, Zilpah. I mean, that was just the complete center of his life. Anyone who knows him knows that he not only did do anything for Zilpah and for their 2 children at the time. Later on, later in life, in his early 60s, he had 2 more children. I never met those children in person, but I'm sure he dedicated every breath of his to those children. And that was the product of those children are the product of him and his wife Zilpah. And so in that sense, it was his Bnei Zikunim, his children from later in life. And I know how much for years he wanted to have children, biological children with Zilpah. Not that he didn't love the first 2 children. He was very, very good to them, took care of them like his own. But I know that he wanted to express his love for his wife Zilpah by having biological children with her, and that the dream was fulfilled later in life with some difficulty. They did not have it easy. Zilpah does not have it easy now with the kids, especially the younger one. But both of them were born premature. But as Zilpah said this morning on the World Alliance of Qara'im WhatsApp group, she sees Boaz in them, and I'm sure that's the case. At least by video, I've been able to see that the 2 kids are absolutely adorable. The older one is just seems to be incredibly intelligent and full of life. The younger one is having a bit of a difficult time. He has some developmental issues, but he just also seems like a very happy child. So that's all a tribute to Boaz and to Zilpah. And all I could say is that I will miss Boaz greatly. I really wanted to be back in the land of Israel with him and sit face to face and do what we used to do all the time, which is just discuss Torah and politics and psychology and anything else just endlessly. I mean, for hours on end. And he just welcomed me and others into his house pretty much at any time. You could almost come there almost any time. There was always something going on at the house. It was a house that was full of activity and full of joy and full of love. And there was always tons of food in the refrigerator, very healthy food, because Boaz, I think, because of his problems with diabetes, had a very, very healthy diet. That was one of the ways he was trying to rid himself, or at least manage diabetes. And so whenever we went over there, it was always just an extremely a healthy meal and lots of food and fun and talking and doing things, and that's the way Boaz was. So I will definitely miss him, and I know anyone who knew him as a friend will miss him. He influenced a lot of lives. So rest in peace, Boaz, and we'll see you and get some sleep in the meantime, my friend. Okay, let's go on to this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha is Eikev. So let me just change this background here. This goes bye-bye. Let me stop this. And let's bring this up. So, okay, I do share. Okay, add to stream. Share, stop screen. Share. Whoa. Share screen. Window, Plata. And there we have it. Okay. So that should do it. Now, I should be able to see the screen. And so we are in Parashat Eikev. Once again, all of this Torah study is dedicated to my friend, my dear friend Boaz Silberberg, who I'm sure is attending the study from up in heaven somewhere. And even if he's not here with us, all of the Torah that I studied with him has certainly influenced my way of seeing the Torah. So he's with us in the study right now. Okay, so we are basically we have to go through Deuteronomy 7:12 through 11:25. Last week we ended at 7:11. Easy one to remember. And now we are in 7:12. But because we didn't go through all of last week's, I think I'm going to start back a bit here in Deuteronomy at the beginning of Deuteronomy 7, just to get a bit of context, and as well to because I didn't get a chance to read this in last week's study. So, alrighty. Any questions? Any comments? Please feel free to break in. What is that weird sound? Oh, I know what it is. Okay. All right, so we're in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 1. Ki yavi'acha Yahweh Elohecha el ha'aretz asher ata ba shama lirishta u'nashal goyim rabim mifanecha ahiti wa'girgashi wa'emori wa'kinaani wa'perizi wa'hevi wa'hibusi shiv'ah goyim rabim wa'atzumim mimecha. Verse 2. Unatatam nitatam Yahweh Elohecha lifanecha vahikitam harem tachrim otam lo techrot lahem brit velo tihanem. So these 7 nations, the nations that inhabit the land of Canaan, are to be completely wiped out. You're not to make a covenant with them. They're completely to be decimated. V'lo tit haten bam bitcha lo ten levino vito lo tikah divanecha ki yasir et bincha me'aharai wa'avdu Elohim aherim v'harra af Yahweh bachem wahish mitcha maher ki im ko ta'asu lahem מזבחותיהם תתוצו ומצבותם תשברו ואשריהם תרדעון ופסליהם תשרפון באש. I'm not doing the translation here because it's not our parsha and we have limited time today. So follow along in the translation of your choice. I will, once we get into our parsha, maybe do more translation and more discussion. But right now, I just want to read basically. Ki am kadosh ata le Yahweh Elohecha b'cha b'achar Yahweh Elohecha להיות לו לעם סגולה מכל העמים אשר על פני האדמה. Verse 7. לא מרובכם מכל העמים חשק יחווה בכם ויבחר בכם כי אתם המעט מכל העמים. I'm sorry, המעט מכל העמים. Verse 8. כי מאהבת יחווה אתכם ומי שומרו את השבועה אשר נשבע לאבותיכם הוציא יחווה אתכם ביד חזקה ויפדך מבית עבדים מיד פרעה מלך מצרים. Verse 9. וידעת כי יחווה אלוהיך הוא האלוהים האל הנאמן שומר הברית והחסד לאוהביו לשומרי מצוותיו לאלף דור. הוא משלם לשונאו את פניו אל פניו להעבידו לא יאחר לשנוא לא יאחר לשנוא. לשנוא את פניו ישלם לו. Okay, verse 11. ושמרת את המצווה ואת החוקים ואת המשפטים אשר אנוכי מצווך היום לעשותם. Okay, and now this begins our parsha. So we're in verse 12 now. והיה עקב תשמעון את המשפטים האלה ושמרתם ועשיתם אותם ושמר יחווה אלוהיך לך את הברית ואת החסד אשר נשבע לאבותיך. ואהבך וברכך והרבך וברך פרי בטנך ופרי אדמתך ירנך תירושך ויצהרך שגר אלפיך ואשתרות צונך על האדמה אשר נשבע לאבותיך לתת לך. Okay. So, all right, so let's translate verse 12 and 13. So verse 12, והיה עקב. Eikev, because is usually the way it's translated, but really it means, well, it comes from the same root as Yaakov, to come behind, to pass from behind, right? That's what was said about Yaakov, because he ended up getting the birthright, right? That's what Esav says. So he was named correctly and being called Yaakov. He came from behind and passed me, right? So Eikev, or Kav, means to basically to be behind, to trail after or be behind. So in this case, Haya Eikev Nishmaun. So as a consequence of, or after your, or as a result of your, I'm trying to think of a good English translation, of your listening to these judgments. So if you, so after you, or if you will, is basically the implication here, listen to these judgments, shamartem vasitem otam, and you keep them and do them, shamar Yahweh Elohecha lecha et habrit wa et hachesed asher nishba la'avotecha, then Yahweh will keep the covenant and the kindness which he swore to your fathers. Verse 13. And he will love you and bless you. And make you plentiful. And bless the fruit of your womb. And the fruit of your land, of the ground. Your grains and your wine and your oil. Shrar alafecha. Shrar is that which comes out of that which is ejected from alafecha. So what is alafecha? Your cattle. With ashterot sonecha. So ashterot is translated here, at least. I'm just looking at the English translation for a second. As offspring of your flocks. Okay, so I have this list, as you all know, I've been attending these Torah studies. I have various lists that I keep. Shalom Ariella and Shalom Lucian Janusum. And one of them is animal terms, right? We have animal terms which appear again and again in the Torah. And so this time through, I decided I'm just going to try to make a comprehensive list because there's so many of them and they mean such specific things and they're used in so many different ways. So now we have a new one that I can add to the list. What happened to my animal terms? There we go. So we have here in Deuteronomy, in verse 13, we have, well, there's a couple of, there are 4 words here. Shagar alafecha ve'ashtarot sonecha. Okay? So let's look at each word individually. Well, shagar is not an animal word per se. So here they translate it as offspring. In modern Hebrew, lishager means to basically to dispatch. Shigur is like a dispatching. So that's what it became in modern Hebrew. But it means offspring. Maybe we should add this as well, because it's specifically the young of beasts. So I think we should add this to the list. So we're going to add sheger. And we'll just grab it from here. Okay, so we've got sheger. Why didn't that work? Oh, shoot. It was the internet. Yeah. Okay, I think we had a glitch on the internet. Okay, so I don't know where the internet stopped working, but we'll continue. The sheger, and it appears in, so this is Deuteronomy 7:13. Deuteronomy 7:13. Deuteronomy 7:13, and it means offspring. Okay, I'll just take this definition out. Let's take the PDB definition. Same thing. Alrighty, so here's our translation. Oh, the heck is, go again. I don't think, I don't think you guys can hear me right now. I think there might be a problem with the internet. Let's see. All right, I'll just wait for it to go back online. I think it's not back online. All right, I'm going to wait another minute. All right. Put this thing. Oh, you can hear. Okay. Interesting, because here it's okay. Now it looks like it's back online. Okay. So let's try this again. So all right. So there we go. Let's extend this out just to drop. There we go. Oops. Here we go again. Now it's not connected. Internet here really stinks sometimes. I'm just going to wait till I see it reconnected here. I don't understand what's happening here. Having some problems with the internet. Okay. Let's wait again for another minute. Just give it another minute. All right. Looks like it's back online, at least for the moment. Let me just see. All right. Let's try this again. Alrighty. So that. So Sheger. Oh, here it is again. I don't understand what's happening here. Can you guys hear me? Really? You can hear me the whole thing? Okay. All right. Then let me just continue. I'll go back to that afterwards. All right. So Sheger. So then we have alafecha. So elef is cattle. And if we look at the concordance here within the Torah, it only appears in Deuteronomy. It doesn't appear anywhere else. And then it appears in later books. One second. Right. So this is cattle. And it's plural. So let's see if we can try to fill that in again. Okay, so Sheger, offspring young. Try to go back and fill this in. So this could be either male or female. Well, actually, it's plural. No, maybe it's either male or female. It's young, species, category. I guess it could be anything. but in this case, it's the alafecha, which are cattle. Right? So let's go back to this for 1 second. Whoa. Here we go. So I guess I can put here for species or category any. And then as a comment, I'll say, well, let's look at it again for 1 second here. So sheger. So here it goes with sheger behema, which again is basically any domesticated animal. Sheger alafecha, cattle. Shkar alafecha, cattle. Shkar alafecha, shkar alafecha. So it usually is followed by alafecha. And that's it. That's the only 5 places it occurs. So I will say in my notes here, usually followed by alafecha. Let's grab that. In one case, and let's grab that one case, where it's a sheger behema, and that's in Exodus 13:12, and that's the verses that's basically the pidyon ben, the redemption of the firstborn. That's in Exodus 13, so that's what it's referring to there. In one case, Exodus 13:12. Behema. Which speaks redemption of firstborn. Behema. Okay, excellent. By the way, I should point out that this spreadsheet, which we've been keeping more or less for all kinds of things. So we've got the sons of Jacob. Actually, originally started as the sons of Jacob many years ago. We've got all kinds of different things. To make a long story short, Bethel and Beersheba, journeys of the Israelites, tabernacle materials, and a whole bunch of other things. If anybody wants the link to the spreadsheet, this is for me, pretty much anything I do is kind of public, in the public domain. It's for everybody. So if you want the link to the spreadsheet, just let me know, and you're welcome to have a link to it. I will not give you editing rights, but certainly reading rights. So, okay, that's that. So where were we? Okay, so we put in here, animal terms. So that's important. Okay, these animal terms. So next we have alafecha, right? And that comes from elef. And I don't know if there's any relationship here to the word elef. Also means 1,000. I don't know if there's any connection. I don't think so, because they would probably mention it somewhere. And I can't see any logical connection unless, maybe it means elef. Maybe the average size of a herd was 1,000, but I don't see any indication here. So only plural cattle, Phoenician alf, Assyrian alpu, etc. used in tillage, subject to man. Okay, well, there we go. So alafecha, so an elef is the underlying word. Let's put that in here. And this means cattle. And it's actually plural. Well, the noun itself is masculine, but it's a plural. So I guess male or female. Let's see how I want to be consistent here. So, bakar, let me see. Seir Eiz Keveshor Ben Yonah Tor Sek Kivsa Part Hamor Aton Kesef Egel. So Bakar would be the only one that is maybe. No, that would definitely be single. So we'll just put this as plural. So age. It's also Deuteronomy 7:13. Age is any. So species is cattle. And comments about Elef. Let's see. Well, we have the places where it's preceded by Sheger, right? That we know, all in Deuteronomy. So it's always preceded by Sheger in Deuteronomy. Let's point that out. Or actually by Shigar, because it's in the what's called the Smichut. It's in the how do you say Smichut again in English? The constructive form, I believe. It's basically a grammatical form where two words are linked together. Okay, so always preceded by Shigar in Deuteronomy. Okay, fine, as it is here in 7:13. Now, if we look at it elsewhere, let's grab, that's Shigar. I'll leave that open just in case we refer back to it. Judges 6:15. Let's take a look at that. So Judges 6:15. And let's context here. It's taking forever. Right. This is good. Gidon. Merma. Saying more importantly, save Israel. Gidon and called to save Israel. Be Adonai. Behold, or my master. Israel. Oh, by the way, when Yoash Avi Kaisari, 1 second here, I just want to see something. Yomer Elav Gidon Bi Adoni Yahweh Imanu Velama Satanu Kol Zot Va'er Kolna. Okay, Yefen Elav Yahweh Yomer Lech Elav Gidon Bi Adoni Wayesh Yahweh Imanu. 1 second, I just want to see one thing. I don't know what the name is. Hello, me. It's time Elu Yahweh. Yefen Elav Yahweh Yomer Lech Bechochacha. Shata et Israel. Okay. Ela bi Adonai. So he's speaking here to God. Okay. And he's calling him Adonai, my master, but it's in the plural form. It's in the plural genitive form, the plural possessive form. So my master, but it literally is my master's. But when speaking to God or to important people, I'm pretty sure Adonai is also used for humans. I mentioned that last week. To the best of my recollection, it is when speaking to an important human being. But but when speaking to God, he's always addressed in the plural: Elohim, Adonim, Adonai, my Lord, right? And it's basically equivalent to what we would call in English the majestic plural, as if when the Queen says, "Oh, we will now have afternoon tea." That's a horrible English accent. Hope none of my English friends are watching. Oh, we will now have afternoon tea. Who's we? She's talking about herself, right? So afternoon tea, I like afternoon tea, by the way. I've actually had it before, but not with the Queen. At any rate, so that's the plural here, okay? Adonai. So it's a one speaking to God, but referring it in the plural as a honorific, as a I think that's the right word, honorific, as an honorary title, okay, as a title of respect and majesty. Okay, at any rate, so Gidon says to God, Israel, how am I going to, or through what am I going to Shia? Am I going to rescue? Am I going to save Israel? Same underlying word for you, any Christians out there, of which I am not one of them. But that's where you get the word Yeshua, which is a shortened form. I think the Greek, the Greco form of Yehoshua, which is of course the second leader after Moshe of the Israelites after they exited from Egypt. At any rate, neither here nor there. Yisrael, hine alfi hadal b'Menashe. So this is what he says. How am I going to rescue Israel? And literally, it says, my cattle is poor within Menashe, within the tribe of Menashe. And I am the youngest within the house of my father. So he's basically saying, Alfi hadal b'Menashe. My cattle is the poorest among Menashe, right? He's basically saying, I come from a poor family, but he's expressing it by saying it. And here we have that word, Elef, Alfi, my cattle is the poorest, is the dal means the poorest or the thinnest. Maybe in this case, a better translation is the thinnest, right? My herd is the thinnest in all of Menashe, right? Just out of curiosity, let's see how they translate it here. Behold, my family is poor Menashe. So they translate Alfi as family, but it's not really my family. It's literally my cattle. They see here my clan. All right, let's look at some other translations. Oh, I got to go to parallel. Oops. This is 6:15. Judges chapter 6, verse 15. My clan, my clan, my clan, my clan, my family, my clan, my family. So we're getting here family and clan. Okay. Let's check how Robert Alter translates it. I would check also, for instance, Everett Fox, but this is only a translation of the Torah, not the Tanakh. So we'll go for Robert Alter. And so we've got to go to Judges 6:15, right? So he translates it also as clan. There's a footnote here. Let's see if he has anything to say. Okay. All right, so that's interesting. So now we can come back here. So all of the translations seem to agree with this translation as clan. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So Alfi. So if we go back here, then the BDB says it's cattle. It doesn't give another translation for it as such as clan. Okay, so here under the Strongs, it says family, kind, or oxen. So the only thing I can conclude here is that Alfi means, just as cattle is like a herd, it basically means my herd, right? But so it's kind of a figurative way of saying my clan, right? My herd is the poorest in all of Menashe. That's what Gidon responds to God. So okay, but it's interesting that it's the Strong's does translate it as family here, but the BDB, which is more reliable, even though the Strong's generally copies from the BDB, doesn't say anything about clan. However, of all of the occurrences here, I should add this one as long as we're here. That's the only one where it doesn't mean literally animals, cattle, right? So I guess this is Gidon's kind of figurative way of saying family. So let's make a little notation of that. This is Elef. In. So this is Judges 6:15. Gidon uses it figuratively to mean family. Is the poorest in Menashe. Okay, so we made a notation. All right then. 1 second. There we go. Okay. Alrighty. So that's Elef. And also, I should make a notation: no indication anywhere that it's related to. No indication that it is related to 1,000. Right? Because the word for 1,000 in biblical Hebrew and in modern Hebrew is Elef. Right? That we see many times. So, for instance, when Moshe is told by Jethro to place leaders over alafim and me'ot and hamishim and asarot, thousands and hundreds and fifties and tens. Okay? Alrighty, so that's that. That's Elef. Okay, so we go on to our next word. And ashtarot. So let's look at our word ashtarot. Let me close all this out because it's too much. So ashtarot. Ooh, I did want to do one thing as long as we're at it. Oh, geez. Hebrew. Let's grab that. Right. Let's go to Isaiah 30:24. And then we have another word here, which is ayarim, which is young donkeys. Okay, so let's just log that as long as we're at it. I'll grab that. So ayir. Okay, a male donkey. A male ass, young and vigorous. I used to, I used to learn with somebody who shall remain nameless, who whenever it was a she actually would see phrases like this would not be able to stop laughing hysterically. So I remember there's one phrase somewhere in Tanakh, something like God will punish you by removing your donkey right from before you, but the translation was God shall punish you by removing your ass from before your face. And this person just could not stop laughing for about 10 or 15 minutes. I must say it's funny. So at any rate, a young and vigorous male ass. We'll just not comment on that at all. But at any rate, so okay, so ayr, let's pick that up. Okay. So let's grab that. So ayr, so that is a donkey. It's a male donkey. Donkey. It's basically a male. Young. Donkey. And it occurs in, oops, just do something here. That occurs in a bunch of places, but the one that okay, was Isaiah 30:24. Isaiah 30:24. Comments according to the BB, according to the BB, it is young and vigorous. No, donkey. Okay. So that's that. So that's Ayarim. Now we go to Deuteronomy. Let me close this off. And we have two more words. So we have Ashtarot. So let's take a look at that. So it appears in Deuteronomy. It appears only in Deuteronomy. There's some words which are it's very interesting. They're very common, or they only appear in Deuteronomy. I think, who is it that pointed this out? I think it was actually Robert Alter that pointed this out, but only appear in anything about that? I don't see anything that pops up. All right, so forget that. But there are words that we see that really are unique to, or almost unique to Deuteronomy. Okay, so Ashtarot is clearly one of them. The only other place it appears in Deuteronomy is in Second Chronicles. Wait a second. I don't even see it in my team. I don't even know why that's there. Second Chronicles 15. I think that's a mistake. Weird. I don't know. There's some kind of weird mistake going on there. At any rate, so Second Chronicles 15:5. I think that's a mistake. So it might only appear in Deuteronomy. So if that's the case, let's just look for 1 second at Second Chronicles 15:5. So there's no Ashtarot here, right? I think that's a mistake. So Second Chronicles 15:5. Oops. And in the English here, yeah, I don't see any indication of Ashtarot. So I think that's a mistake. So it actually only appears in Deuteronomy. So let's make a notation of that. And Ashtarot is translated again by the BDB as the young or the offspring, right? And appears only before Tzonecha, according to the BDB. So okay, so let's write that down. So we've got Ashtarot. Should I put the female, or I mean the singular or the plural? Well, it only appears in the plural, but I'll just put the singular, which is Ashtara. Again, younger offspring, basically. So here, this is interesting. The BDB here relates it to the goddess Astarte, who's the goddess of fecundity, of fertility. I don't know if that's the case, but that's interesting. So Ashtarot, interesting. Okay, maybe I'll even mark that down. At any rate, it seems to mean young or offspring. So let's write that down. Translation: young. And it can refer to either males or females. Age is young. Any. And here's only in construct form. So we can just grab this. Sonecha. Okay. Oh. Sonecha appears only in Deuteronomy, and according to EDB, may be related to the name. Let's put it this way: related to facility goddess. To the root word, the root, same root as the name of the fertility. So not saying it's necessarily related to that fertility goddess, but that it comes from that same root. Okay. Alrighty, so that's Ashtarot, and also we have another hint here. As I've mentioned many times, there's this idea. So there are two recurrent ideas in biblical Hebrew, in Tanakhic Hebrew, and so one is that repetition implies emphasis. So I give the example of bo yavo, okay, which is often translated as "you shall surely come" or "surely come," right? So when you have repetition of the same word, that implies emphasis. But another way that the Torah kind of poetically emphasizes something, or poetically, excuse me for one second. Excuse me for 1 second. So another way that the Torah likes to express itself is to have words or phrases in parallelism. So there's a classic example. So it's a shkar alafecha ve'ashtarot sonecha. So these are basically, we can learn, if we didn't know what the word ashtarot meant, we can learn by it being in parallel with shgar. So shgar is the offspring of your cattle. Shgar, literally that which comes out of your cattle, that which is, cast out of your cattle. The ashtarot sonecha, and the fecundity, the results of the fertility of your flocks. But this is a very common structure here, okay, where you have two phrases which are basically, well, we can't call them synonyms, but they're kind of, yeah, you can feed the cats again. Well, why don't you wait until 8 o'clock because we fed them late, right? We gave them the tuna. All right. So they're in parallel, right? So we can learn that shigar is somehow related to ashtarot. Usually they're synonyms, okay? And indeed, in this case, they are, right? They both mean, as we saw, at least according to the BDB, they both mean young or offspring, okay? Maybe really I should even put the same thing. Really means the same thing. So, right? And that's a common way that the Torah will express itself in that kind of parallelism. So we see the young of let's translate it this way: the young of your cattle, or the offspring, because shigar is maybe better translated as offspring, because it's again that which is sent out of, that which is ejected out of. Maybe even I'll translate here. This is just offspring, and this is young. Yeah, but that kind of masks it because they really are the same thing. Offspring, young. Okay, we'll go with that. Offspring, I think, is the correct translation here. And let's go with young. Yeah, we'll just leave this as offspring or young. Okay, so and here, ashtarot sonecha, right? So shkar and ashtarot are in parallel. Alafecha, cattle and flocks are in parallel. Herds and flocks are in parallel. That's something we often see, right? So that's very typical for the Torah, right? So the offspring of your cattle, of your herds, and the young of your flocks, right? It's very typical structure within biblical Hebrew, within Tanakhic Hebrew. Okay, let's move on, because as usual we got wound up on that, but it is important. I really do want to get all of these down. Okay, let's move on. Or actually, I'm going to put this back, offspring / young. Just leave it. In fact, I'm just going to leave this as young and that as offspring. Okay. And this is in Deuteronomy 7:13. Oh, and then finally we have Ashtarot and Sonecha we already have. Okay, so we don't need to log that. Why don't I have its own here? I should. I have Zir, Ez, Keves, Shor. Oh, that's weird. I should have its own. All right, let's edit now. So its own is your flocks. And it appears in many places. Oops. Its own. I'm surprised I didn't have it earlier. Okay. So translation is flock. And this is going to be sheep or goats. It's basically the parallel of bakar. Bakar is herd, and its own is flock. So this is going to be sheep or goats. Okay, it can be male or female. It can be any age. And really, this should be up higher. So let's put it right next to, let's put it even all the way up here. It's on, and it appears in many places, but one place is, let's look at Genesis 4:2. Heaven ro'etz on. So it's talking about Cain and Abel. Okay, so Genesis 4:2, good enough. Okay. Really, this should say sheep or goats. And then this should really just say sheep or goats. Okay. All right, so that does that. All right, let's move on here. Right, okay, so we're in verse 14 now. So in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 14, Baruch tihyeh mikol ha'amim ha'amim lo yeh becha akar ve'akara u'biv hemtecha. Okay? See one thing here, Deuteronomy 7. So let's see one thing. Right, so this is how he translates it. So here he sees it as male or female, meaning humans, nor among your beasts. And really, I should add the word behema as well. Did I add the word here, behema? I don't have behema and chaya. Okay, another time. It's enough for now. All right, so there's going to be no one barren. So akar is for male, and akara is for female. So no barren ones among you, meaning you're humans, meaning among the people, and also among the animals. Okay. It's a pretty comprehensive promise. Waisir Yahweh mincha kol holi chol madwe Misraim ha'ra'im asher yadata lo yasimon bach unittanam bechol sonecha. Okay. So Yahweh mincha, so Yahweh will take away from you kol choli, all sickness, bechol madwe Mitzrayim, and all of that's also kind of sickness, some illnesses or ailments, diseases. What would be a good word for it? What's the word I'm thinking of? Not ailments, but afflictions of Mitzrayim. Hara'im, all of the horrible afflictions of Mitzrayim. Asher yadata, which you knew, right? Lo yasimam bach. He will not put them upon you, but he will place them upon all your enemies. Now, I just want to look at this word madve, which, if I'm not mistaken, is related to the word nida. So I just want to see that for 1 second. Yeah, dava. So that's in Leviticus 12. 12, speaking about the Davatat Itma, that's speaking about basically the Nida period. Right? So English translation, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a woman have conceived seed and born a man-child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of the separation for her infirmity. Nidat davata shall she be unclean. So here we have nidat and davata appearing together. Now, is nidat related to davata? So davata means they translate it as infirmity, right? It's the same word as we see here, madwe or madwe mitzrayim. So dava, okay, means sickness, infirmity, affliction, disease. Now let's look at nidah for a second. So I'm going to guess it's not from the same root, although it could be. There's nun and taf are consonants that can drop in or drop out. So what kinidata, benidata, it's all in Leviticus, basically. So the BDB translates it as impurity, ceremonial impurity. So I don't see it being related anywhere. From Nabdad properly. Just Nabdad. Right. So the wander. Right. So maybe nida would be better translated as like a separation. And I wonder if we could find it in that context, but I'm not going to look. Okay, I just wanted to see very briefly if dava and nidata are from the same root, and I don't think, at least according to the BDB and the Strongs, they're not. Okay, so let's leave it at that. Okay, let's move on. Verse 16. Kol ha'amim asher Yahweh Elohecha noten lach lo tachos einecha alehem ולא תעבוד את אלוהיהם כי מוקש הוא לך. Okay, you're going to destroy all the nations and do not have any mercy on them because they're going to be a snare for you. Mokesh is a snare. So kill them all off, because if you don't, what's the reason? What's the reason that's given a number of times for killing off the nations that inhabit the land, the 7 nations that inhabit the land of Canaan? It's if you don't, they're gonna tempt you to idol worship. We saw that up above earlier in Deuteronomy. Okay, you'll give your daughters to their sons, and they will give their daughters to your sons, and then you will end up worshiping their gods. Right? They will tempt you to worship their gods. So one of the reasons, one reason is certainly that they deserved it. Right? The sin of the Amorites is not yet complete, as God says to Abraham in Genesis 15. That's why your descendants have to go down to Egypt for 400 years. We discussed that in length. So that's one of the reasons, right? That these nations are just evil, so they deserve to be completely wiped out. They were given chances for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they didn't change their evil ways. So, time to go. But another reason, again, we've seen this many times in the Torah. This is kind of like ancient Israelite mode of thinking, or ancient Israelite philosophy, or by extension, God's mode of thinking or philosophy, if one may be so bold to try to figure out how God thinks. But things happen things happen for confluence of reasons. There are often many reasons, right? So an underlying reason why the Israelites are to wipe out these nations is because they are evil. They sacrificed their own children in the fire. They sacrificed to foreign gods. Their cities are filled with violence and bloodshed. Well, it doesn't say that explicitly. More focus on the idol worship, right? But they commit abominations, as it says in Leviticus 18, 19, 20, right? So they deserve basically to be wiped out. Okay, they've been given hundreds of years of God's mercy, God's patience, and they haven't changed their ways. kind of like the United States is heading down the same road. So, so God determines at a certain point, that's it, time to wipe these nations off the face of the earth. But another reason that's given within this idea of this confluence of reasons, there are many reasons. Just as we saw, there are sometimes for names, there are multiple reasons for names, right? So we gave, I think last week we were speaking about the name of Esav as Edom. So he comes out as a hairy, like a red mantle, it says, okay. And later on, he purchases a bowl of red porridge from Yaakov, and the land where he ends up living is called Edom. So we have this confluence of reasons that the land is called Edom, right? There's more than one reason. In the case of Beersheba, we saw the same thing. Sheva, in one context, Beersheba is named because of an oath, a Shavuah. Another time because of 7 wells, Sheva, right? So that's 2 reasons given for the name Beersheba. Well, here there are at least 2 reasons given for why these nations, these 7 nations that inhabiting the land of Canaan, have to be wiped out. Reason number 1, they deserve it. If they've been given chances for hundreds of years and they've not changed their evil ways. And number 2, because if the Israelites do not wipe them out, if the Israelites allow them to stay, then they will intermingle with them and tempt them into worshiping their gods. Okay, and that's obviously a big no-no for Israel, which is exactly what happens in the end anyway, because they're not wiped out. Okay, verse 17. כי תאמר בלבבך רבים הגויים האלה ממני, איך אוכל להורישם? Okay, you can translate that on your own, follow along in whatever language you wish. לא תירא מהם, זכור תזכור את אשר עשה יהוה אלוהיך לפרעה ולכל מצרים. Right, so don't fear these nations that you're supposed to wipe out, because you saw, God is going to be with you, and you saw with your own eyes. Well, this is the next generation, so they didn't see it with their own eyes, or at least they were little children at the time, right? Because anyone under the age of 20 was spared after the incident of the golden calf. And I'm sorry, not after the incident of the golden calf, that's after the incident of the 10 spies. And anyone who was not under the age of 20 was killed off. So these were youngsters or children, or not born, when the Israelites were taken out of Egypt. However, you saw, right, maybe meaning figuratively, or you heard about, or you know of, or some of you saw with your own eyes, what God did to Egypt. So don't fear these nations, right? These nations are certainly not as strong as Egypt was. Egypt was, at that point, the leading power in the world, one of the leading powers in the world, maybe along with Assyria. Okay, verse 19. Hamasot hagadolot asher ra'u einecha v'ha'adtot v'ha'muftim. Just a second. Right. Wahayad hazakah v'azroa nitguya asher otziacha Yahweh Elohecha ken ya'aseh Yahweh Elohecha lechol ha'amim asher ata yar'eh mifnehem. Okay, let's go on. Verse 20. V'ram et ha'tzir'ah ישלח יהוה אלוהיך בם עד עבוד הנשארים והנסתרים מפניך. So God's going to help out the situation with hornets. So I wonder if that ever happens. I'm trying to remember if there's anywhere in the Tanakh where this actually comes true. Well, we have in Joshua 24:12. Get some context here. Right, so this is the end of Joshua, and he's basically recounting Okay. Sorry about that. A little bit of a glitch. Give me 1 second here. Okay, sorry about that. Had a glitch here. Let's try this again. Oh, right. Have here in where was it? So in Joshua 24:12, and we'll just read the English. So here's Joshua kind of giving his Deuteronomical speech, right? This is his speech at the end before he died. At the end, right here in Joshua 24:29, Joshua dies. So this is his speech before his death. Just as the book of Deuteronomy is basically Moshe's speech before death. Okay? So this is it. This is kind of like the bequeathal speech, right? Or the summary speech of his entire life. And here, we'll start in Joshua 4:11, read the English. Then you crossed the Jordan, came to Jericho. The citizens of Jericho fought against you, did the Amorites, the Perizzites, etc., etc. The same group, that's the same 7 nations that are mentioned here, I believe. Let me just see. Here we have, there's always these different lists of 7 nations, and sometimes it's not exactly 7 nations. Here we have the Hittites, the Girgasites, the Ammonites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and here we have the Amorites, the Perizzites. So it's a different order. Okay, let's just check it out very quickly. All right, the Hittites. Next, Just comparing Deuteronomy 7:1 with Joshua 24:11. Hites, check. The Amorites, check. The Canaanites, check. The Perizzites, check. The Hivites and the Jebusites, check. But it's in a different order, right? I don't know why it's one order there and one order in the other place. The Hivites and the Hivites, it's a different order. At any rate, neither here nor there. Same list of the 7 nations, okay? But I gave them into your hands. So these are the 7 nations that basically God says later in Deuteronomy, where we are right now. Where are we? Whoops. Nope. One second. Right here in verse 20. Okay, so there it says he's going to send the hornet. And now Joshua says, I gave them in hands, I sent the hornet ahead of you, which drove them out before you. Also, the 2 Amorite kings. Well, the 2 Amorite kings we're talking about, Sichon and Og. I don't remember hornets driving out Sichon and Og. So God is implying here, or Joshua is implying, when you conquered Sichon and Og, you didn't do it with your own sword and bow, which might be a nice way of saying, well, it was God's hand. I don't remember hearing anything about hornets. But what's going on here? All right, let's try to get some information about this, because this is the only mention in the rest of the Tanakh, aside from the Torah, of hornets. Okay, let's see what Robert Alter has to say. So it's Joshua 24. Actually, we can go here, 20. So the hornet, the meaning of the term tzira'ah is uncertain. Okay, that's first of all. See the philological comment on Exodus 23:28, where it suggested that it might be a supernatural agency, the smasher. We'll take a look at that. Alternatively, since the verb at the beginning of the next word, be terrified, reflecting constant order, resh, tough, sad, samach, I guess, and appears, no, sadi, and appears to play on the sound of tzirah, it might mean terror. Abraham ibn Ezra ingeniously identifies it as some kind of epidemic by relating to tzara'at, which also has the root sa'ir or sadi resh. Interesting. Okay. His Exodus 3:20. First of all, what is Exodus 23:28? So Exodus 23:28. First of all, where are we? Okay, so this is basically mishpat, various laws right after. Oh no, mishpat. Yeah, this is mishpatim. Right after the giving of the commandments, then we get to a bunch of laws. So he's sending us to where was it? 23:28. So 23:28 says, okay. So 23:28 is the same. So let's look at what Roger has to say in 23:28. Okay. This is what Barbara Aldrich says regarding 28. There's some question about what is sent. The noun tir'ah appears in the Bible only 3 times, all in the context of the conquest of Canaan. So the 3 have right? So Deuteronomy 23, sorry, 28, Job 24:12, and Deuteronomy 7:20. The strong consensus of later Hebrew of some descent refers to a noxious stinging insect. In that case, functions collect a common biblically used for animals. Sworn hornets. An alternative is related with constant reverse rats. Okay, and this is rather than a zooical editor or smashing, which would strictly be parallel. My terror, verse 20 something. Yes, let's look at that. Hebrews 23. I don't think there's any indication that tir'ah, hornet, especially he notes here, the strong consensus later Hebrew tradition, that basically means the rabbis. The rabbis say it means the hornet. That doesn't mean that it does mean the hornet, just as the rabbis say that a mother means a bastard, basically someone who's born through an illegal relationship, sexual relationship, and it doesn't mean mamzer. I have an article on that. We don't necessarily mean at all. Okay, so let's look. He's telling, and let's just read that together briefly. So let's start with 28. So 28 says which, and the word that's usually translated as hornet, tir'ah, one. Hornet, anything else. What he says is, verse 7, let's look at that. Before you, Ema, fear or terror. Okay? Hamuti, kill. I'm sorry. Cause confusion. I will cause confusion for all the people upon them. And I will cause all of your enemies to turn around and flee from you, basically to turn to you and flee. Okay? Okay, I will send this thing, the tir'ah. So basically, I guess what thing, okay, some plot. So it's related to the word ra'at. Well, it's a reverse consonant of the word ra'at, which is even in modern Hebrew means to smash. And but if I buy that, I'm not sure if it's with the consonants reversed. Okay. You do see, remember yourself appear in parallel, right? So we can relate Sheger and Ashtarot. They both mean the same. Sheger is offspring. Ashtarot is the fertility, right, of your flock, right? So the offspring of your flock, the fecund, maybe it would actually be a better word. I just want to, because I have it here. I have another. Let's see if I can find this. Oops, shoot. So let me just grab. Sheger, usual translation. Offspring would be my translation. And let me just we'll turn that's 17. And we have Ashtarot. Again, young. And I guess I'll call it Fekundi. Also in 713. And oh shoot. Yeah. Means send out is a better translation. Perhaps related to or the new start is also related to Ra. I have to look it up. No, Asherah is with an aleph. Okay. Fertility god. So that better translation. Make those for myself. So we have parallel years. Let me translate 27 and 20 together. I will hear before, and then 28 says, I will send the before you, right? Et emati ashalach lecha v'shalach atzirah. So Robert Alter's making a very good point, which is we don't really know what the word means. The rabbis, I'm assuming, it says the rabbis, are saying application because it appears times in the entire but it is in parallel. It's word for word, right? Verb, and here's shalach, right? It's the same forms. I will send my fear. So then he's saying, why doesn't this mean fear? He says it means some mythical creature called the Smasher, because it's related to another word, ara. I'm not sure I have that. Maybe a better word would be fear, right? I will send my fear. Maybe tzir'ah, really fear. And I think that's actually what he says back at our verse here in Deuteronomy. So this is Deuteronomy 7:20. Back to that. And I'm going to stop the study soon. I have to get going. Deuteronomy 7:20. Let's read his comment again. So his comment here, he does horn it. He says, before, but I'll reread it. The meaning of the Hebrew is this 23:28. Can you please, where it suggests the supernatural agency, the smasher? Let's go with the alternatively. Since the beginning of the next verse, B reflects the same reversed order and appears to play on Tzir'ah. Ibn Ezra ingenious by so not, even though I think Ibn Ezra is really like his comment every week, Rashi, or as I like to call him, back in the store where Microsoft Word autocorrect it to rash. So, but let's look here. So this is now in Deuteronomy. So this is 7:20. Okay, this is the next verse. It's 21. Lot rots. Okay, interesting. So he's relating. So what Robert Alters basically says, he's relating Hakah, hornet, quote unquote, okay, to this three consonants. Here we have Tzadi, Rein. Here we have In, Reish, Tzadi. So it's basically when Ezra relates it to Ta'at, which is usually, but we a scale disease, spoke about the book of Leviticus extensively. But that's interesting, right? So here, rots, you shall not, and we ta'arots means be terrified. Okay, lo ta'arots them, because I will, verse 20, the tzirah. So if this is an example of parallelism, which might be in a certain sense, right? Even though the concept is reversed, I mean somehow terror. I will send the terror, their, your fear or the terror before them, right? And I like that a lot better, of course, than this idea of a hornet. Okay, so if we translate 20 and 21 together with that translation, in verse 20 it says, also, he will send, I'm sorry, this is Moses speaking, so it's not God speaking, it's Moses speaking. He will send fear or the terror. I'm sorry, Yahweh will send terror. Yahweh, your God, will send terror upon them until it destroys the remaining ones, the hiding ones from before you. So do not have terror from them. Do not fear. Do not be terrorized by them, or do not fear terror from them, because Yahweh your God is in your midst. El Gadol v'norah, a great and terrible. It's a great and, I mean, that's the way it's translated, but we're talking about terror here, and it's not the same Hebrew root. So a great and awesome, or fear-inspiring God, call it that way. So I like that much better. So maybe means let's go with terror, according to Robert Alter's understanding. And again, he quotes the Ibn Ezra relating to the word tzara'at. You should translate it as leprosy, scale disease, something. At any rate, let's move on. We'll go to the end of this, and then I'm going to stop. Verse 22. לא תוכל כלותם מהר פן תרבה עליך חיית הזה. 3. נתתם יחווה אלוהיך לפן וחמם הומה גדולה עד we saw Exodus. Yeah, here, Hamoti. That's the same root. Here, have right. Mihuma gidol ad ashmiam, or when Natan chehem biyocha, we avadita et sham mitach hashamayim lo yityasev ish bi fanecha ad ishmitcha otam. 25. Again, you can follow in the English. Pisilehem tisrefun bosh lo tahmo kesef zahav alehem ולקחת לך פן תואקש bo ito Yahweh Elohecha hu. Your molten images, carved images, so they're carved images, right, which are ostensibly made of silver and gold, burn in the fire. Tahmod kesev v'zahav alehem. Don't tahmod. Tahmod is the last, the 10th commandment, right? It's, how do you translate this again? Do not covet the silver and the gold that is upon them. Yes, if I were to read this here, the way I would understand it is these. Let's just finish the verse. Aleim v'lakachta lach, and take it for you. Pen tivakesh bo ki tovat Yahweh Elohecha hu. So this is very interesting, right? So we have here, you're going to burn their carved images in the fire, and do not covet, do not be jealous, not lust after the silver and that is upon them. So what we're talking about, I guess, talking about is idols that are made of wood and then plated in gold or silver. Okay, so you're going to burn them in the fire. You're gonna burn them in the fire, and maybe you think, well, we'll take out that external layer, that plating, that gold and silver plating, and keep it to ourselves. But no, okay, don't take it for yourself. Okay, so I guess you either melt it down in the fire, or you just, who knows, pulverize it into dust. Now it's very interesting. We do have precedent for this because we know that basically, well, let's see. Many of the items in the tabernacle were wood overlaid with gold or silver. So, okay, the ark cover was a pure piece of gold. It was not overlaid, it was beaten from a single piece of gold. But the ark itself, if I remember correctly, is acacia wood overlaid with gold. The incense altar is acacia wood overlaid with, now I can't remember, was it gold or silver? I'd have to look back. The altar of sacrifice is acacia wood overlaid with copper, is it? I believe. Again, I'd have to check back and I'll see this, but we do have this precedent in the building of the tabernacle where we have wood overlaid with silver or gold or copper, right? So that seems to be what it's referring to here. Very interesting. This is kind of oh, I should get rid of this thing. It's been there for too long. So, we get kind of this is kind of just a biblical archaeological statement. And we get insight into how these idols were made. I wonder if, again, Robert all. Okay. That's what it seems to mean. We're talking about wooden statues. That's why they burnt in the fire, as it says here. But don't take the gold and the silver upon them, which really would imply overlaid upon them. So don't take that silver and gold plating around the wooden idols. Burn the whole thing in the fire. I guess either melt down the silver and the gold and just leave it there, or dispose of the gold and silver in some other way, right? But you burn the wood that's underneath, right? Gods of wood and gods of stone. Okay. Okay. Well. ולא תביאו אימה אל ביתך והיית חרם כמוהו. שקץ תשעקצנו ותעב תתעבנו כי חרם הוא. So don't bring an abomination into your house, right? So I assume it's either speaking about the entire idol or the gold and the silver that you may have stripped off from the outer coating of the idol. Don't bring that into your house, right? Because if you do, you're going to be slated for destruction, just like it is. What I'm telling you to do, the idols, to destroy them, you're going to be the one who's going to be destroyed if you bring that gold and that silver, or perhaps speaking about the entire idol. I think the context of the gold and the silver, because it says lo tachmod kesef v'zahav alehem, right? V'lakachta lach pen tivakesh bo tovat Elohecha hu. So now let's read this again, verse 25. Do not covet the silver and the gold that is upon, and take it for yourselves, lest it be a snare for you, lest you get snared in it, ensnared by it, because it is an abomination before to Yahweh your God, right? What's an abomination? Obviously, the entire idol is an abomination, okay? So I think what it's saying, maybe you may see the gold and the silver around the carved image, and you may think the whole thing like it's going to glitter, right? It looks so beautiful, these idols, okay? If you've ever gone to, oh God, there's a Hindu temple back when I used to live in New York, far from where I live, and I went in there on a number of occasions just out of curiosity to see what it's all about and to eat some amazing Indian food. The place is actually quite famous. And you see their idols there, and I don't know if it's real gold or real silver, but they're kind of, if I remember correctly, gold plated and silver plated, and then they're beautiful and glittery, and you're like, wow, look at this thing, right? And that's exactly the point, right? You might see beautiful carved. Hindus are literally idol worshippers, and you might see the gold and the silver that is upon those images, and you might say, wow, I want these things. They're so beautiful, and like gold, silver, and right? So you take it to your house. You might, instead of destroying them, take these idols into your house, and this is going to be a Torah. This is going to be an abomination, right? We have many things that are called an abomination. The one that always gets publicity is homosexuality. Well, that's a modern interpretation. Anal sex between men specifically is the one that's always for being called a toeva. But there's a bunch of things in the that are called toeva. False weights and balances are called a toeva, are called an abomination. Well, this is called an abomination. These idols are called an abomination. So don't bring so don't bring this into your house, right? So there to be, I guess the context is the entire idol. Don't bring the entire idol into your house. You're going to see this statue with the beautiful and silver all around it, and you might bring it into your house. So don't covet, don't let that gold and silver, ensnare you. You covet that gold and silver. You see, how beautiful the gold and silver is, and so now you want to bring the entire idol into your house, and now suddenly you have the idol in your house, right? V'haita harem kamohu, v'haita harem kamohu. Okay. So if you do, then you're going to be destroyed. Kamoh it. I guess it's referring again to the idol. Yeah, for sure it is. You can see tishatzenu, meaning the idol, right? So you're going to become slave for destruction. Basically, do that, I'll destroy you the way you're supposed to destroy the idols. Okay, you're the one who's going to be destroyed. Abominations in your house. Shaketz tishatzenu. Okay, sheketz is like God. How do you say this in English again? Sheketz is something that's to be, I guess, despised, right? So, and have a repetition, right? Repetition means emphasis. Sheketz sin, okay, completely, utterly despise it, okay? Detest, here the translation is detest. Vita'ev, titavenu. So we have basically two repetitions or two emphasized words, right? Shaketz tishatzenu, utterly detested. Vita'ev titavenu, and utterly abominated, utterly say abominate, I'll make up a new word. Okay, abhor is what they say here. Okay, utterly abhor. So we see, first of all, the repetition, right? Which usually is translated as completely or utterly or thoroughly. So utterly test it and utterly abhor it. So now we see that shaket and ta'ev somehow they're in parallel kind of synonyms, right? They're related to each other. That's how we can a lot of times find the meaning of this, right? So utterly abhor it. Ki harem, who? Because it is harem is basically slated for destruction. Okay, here they translate it as an accursed thing. Let's look. Okay. Right, devotion, ban. So ban in this case means, basically ban means, in context means for destruction. It's exactly what it's right. Lahrim, okay, in modern Hebrew, lahrim means to confiscate. In ancient Hebrew, when you lahrim something, it means in the context of, let's look here. Context means, okay, so it really means, I guess, devoted or set apart, but in context is set apart destruction. So I think destruction is a good translation. In fact, I like that translation. Someone had it to my Google list translations. Okay. When it comes to the Torah. Okay. Harem, again, they translate here first. Dedicated. First. So, well, it's destruction. These two. Okay. And Deuteronomy. Okay. And then I'm gonna. That's it. Okay. Deuteronomy 7. We are supposed to go to the end of Deuteronomy 11. So we have 8, 9, 10, 11. It's a long parsha. But that's all. Almost a lot of. Oh my. What the heck is that? Alrighty. Oh my God, people. Oh. How do we get user? Goodbye. Okay. Alrighty, so that's it. I don't know who that guy was. Whatever. So, all right. Any questions? Any comments before we end here? No. I hope you enjoyed the study. We've been going for about 2 hours. So much more to say or to explore. time as always. I wish I could do this every day, one of these days. But for right now, I have a full-time commitment. Those of you who I'm in the process, I'm actually with my master's degree in biology, which has been an amazing journey. And see God's, Yahweh's creation from a different would that would have had a and now in another couple of months it will all be done, and then we'll see what the next step is. So I'm completely overwhelmed, not overwhelmed, but I have tons of work doing that, so I can't dedicate as much time during the week to Torah studies as I'd like to. Okay, all right then. If there are no more comments and questions, I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom and a Shavua Tov, depending where in the world you are. And Be'ezrat Yehovah, we'll see you next week. Once again, this Torah study was dedicated to my dear friend Boaz Silberberg, who unfortunately just recently passed away a couple of days ago. Boaz, you'll be missed by all of those whose lives you touched. And I am certainly one of those people. You will forever be in my memory. You had a very, very big influence on me in my life. And we were very close friends, especially when I used to come, when you and I both lived in Jerusalem. And I spent a lot of time at your house with you and your wife Zilpa and your kids. So have a good rest, Boaz, and see you at the end of days. All right, with that, I wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom and a Shavua Tov.